We'll start off with a little short meditation, and then we'll go into the Dhamma discussion. So let's just get comfortable. Let's get grounded in our seat, whether that's on a cushion or on a chair or even laying down. Try to find your posture, finding a straight back or as straight as possible, making sure that you're not holding any tension in your neck or your shoulders. Make sure you drop your shoulders, that your shoulders just slide down, and check on your fingers and your hands, how you're holding them. Make sure you're not making a fist or holding any tension in your arms, and just do a quick scan of your body, from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Check your forehead, your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw, your chest, your abdomen, your back, your hips, your seat, your upper legs, your lower legs, your feet and your toes, and just release any tension. Try to take a very, very, very relaxed posture, but at the same time, find some stability. You can close your eyes or leave them open, however you like. And let's begin by slowly and gently withdrawing our attention from the external environment. Start drawing in our attention. Start gathering our attention. And we're going to start resting our attention on the breath. And that may look very different for some people. Some people like to focus maybe on the nose or the abdomen or some other part of the body, or maybe just the entire breath, whatever works for you. So start drawing in your attention, start gathering your attention, and rest your attention, rest your awareness on the breath. And let's start observing the breath. Breathing in, breathing out, inhalation, exhalation. Just become aware of this simple, natural process. Just observe the breath. There's no need to try to control it. Just let it happen in a normal rhythm. And when we observe the breath, we're going to use the feeling, that tactile sensation, the bodily sensation of the breath. Feel the breath on the inhalation and feel the breath on the exhalation. In the beginning, some of us find it useful to note. We might mentally recite breathing in, breathing out, or maybe count, and that's fine. But once you gain some stability, please let go. Please drop this narrative. Please drop the noting and feel the breath. Observe that raw, tactile sensation as you breathe in and out. Then we begin to observe the nuances, the texture of the breath, whether it's long or short, or whether the breath is fast or slow. Maybe we even become aware of some obstructions to the breath. Maybe one of our nostrils is plugged, or we have a lot of mucus or a very dry nose. Just become aware. Feel it. Feel the breath. Feel the texture of the breath as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And now let's try to encompass the entire breath from the moment that it enters the tip of your nose until it reaches the bottom of your abdomen. And when it leaves your chest and goes out your nose, try to capture the entire breath. Feel it all. Feeling the entire breath. Awareness of the entire breath. We become curious. We begin to examine the breath throughout the entire body. The relationship between the breath and the entire body. See the effects that the breath has on the body. Once again, trying to stay away from any narratives or noting or any stories. Just feeling. Feeling the breath. Feeling the entire body. We begin to expand and to grow our attention to encompass the entire body as we breathe in and out. We begin to feel the entire body from head to toe, front and back, side to side. Aware of the entire body as we breathe in and out. And we'll notice that our attention may jump from one part of the body to another, or maybe we're only capable of attending, becoming aware of maybe 20, 50% of the body, and that's okay. To the extent that you can encompass your entire body with your awareness, that's fine. And now that we're aware of the entire body, we try to find stillness in this body. Find some calm in this body. We begin to develop non-reactivity to sounds and touches and smells and taste, thoughts and feelings. Stillness and tranquility in body. This vast and pervasive sense of open awareness throughout the entire body. And we might notice these moments of spaciousness and lucidity, non-reactivity. The mind is no longer going to the past or future. The mind is no longer being dragged around by the senses. The mind is free of reactivity, of urges, stillness, calmness, focus, alertness, clarity. This wholesome mental state this unification of experience called samadhi. If at any time your mind starts drifting, gently bring it back to the breath. No worries. Now that your body is relaxed, mind is calm, you can bless yourself with your wholesome state of mind. By the great wisdom and compassion of the Supreme Buddha, truthfulness of his teachings, Dhamma, noble qualities of his perfect disciples, Mahasangha, may you be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. Now I will chant some blessings for you all. Sabi Io Vivanjantu Sabero Vinasatu Mate Bhavantwanterayo Sukhi Digayuko Bha Bhavetu Sabbe Mangelan Rakantu Sabbe Devata Sabbe Buddha Nubhavena Sabbe Dhamma Nubhavena Sabbe Sangha Nubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Ti. Also, through the power of this harmonious practice, you have developed a wholesome state of mind. You have developed wholesome merits, punya kamma. By the power of this meritorious action, may you be free from immature company, and may you always have good companions until you attain nibbana. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satam samagemo hotu yaveni banapatiya. So at this time, you can gently come out of your meditation. I always like to add this other kind of meditation that is not really practiced that much in Western circles, which is called anusati. Anu means like again, to come back, and sati means to mind or reflect or awareness. So we bring the Buddha to mind, we bring the Dhamma to mind, we bring the Sangha to mind, we bring the triple gem, we reflect on the triple gem. That's also very important reflections that we need to do, because those are our inspiration or motivation for the practice, for the state of liberation. Those are our ancestors. So it's very important to reflect on our ancestry, our tradition, and the goal of the practice. Why are we practicing, right? Who did we get this from? What is this Dhamma? It's a very kind of like a more devotional, but also very kind of curious, right? Do I have right view? Do I understand what I'm doing? Like, am I really about this? Yeah, we need to question our practice, question our teacher, question ourselves. Are we being sincere about the practice? Okay, so yeah. So now it's time for the Dhamma talk. Before I start, I'd like to pay my respects to the Buddha. So a little bit more chanting. All right. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Homage to the Buddha. Okay, everyone. So, yeah, I didn't really have anything planned, but since I brought up this topic of kind of neglected meditations, like the one on Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, I want to talk about another neglected meditation, which is called Samavayama. Samavayama is the sixth step in the Noble Eightfold Path, right? And it's also known as Chattari Samapadana. Chattari means four, Sama means wholesome, and Padana means striving, right? So the four wholesome strivings, right? So we're going to have four things to do, right? In this practice of Samavayama. So this is actually the gateway into meditation. This precedes sati, mindfulness, and it precedes concentration, jhana. Here's where we actively work with mental states, or we can say thoughts, intentions, motivations, even emotions. Here's where we really make an effort to cultivate that which is beneficial and eliminate that which is not beneficial for the practice. So I don't know if you notice this sometimes, but when you come to sit, you bring your whole life, you bring your whole world with you into the sit, right? Like everything's there. And people struggle so much, right? How do I cultivate this mindfulness? How do I cultivate this state of concentration when I'm being bombarded by my entire life history, right? It's all coming up. All these thoughts, all these patterns, all this fantasizing, all this daydreaming or dozing off, whatever you do in meditation. How do I deal with this, right? So we need to create a fertile ground for meditation. There is a sutta called Dvaita Vitaka Sutta. Dvai means two, Vitaka means thoughts, two types of thinking. This is a very interesting sutta. Majjhima Nikaya 18 or 19, something like that. I forget the number right now, but it's one of those two. The Buddha recalls when he was practicing as Prince Siddhartha as the Bodhisattvas, right? We got a lot of Bodhisattvas here. So this is important for us. So he said, you know what? I'm going to try something very radical. I'm going to try meditating on what people call unwholesome and what people call wholesome. And I'm going to see for myself if the unwholesome is really unwholesome and if the wholesome is really wholesome, right? The Buddha didn't take it for granted. He goes, okay, let me meditate on sensual thoughts, kama, sensuality. So he sits there and he meditates on sensuality. And then after meditating some time on sensuality, he goes, you know what? This is not really working out. I don't feel any calmer. I don't feel any better. I don't think this is for my benefit, for the benefit of others. Like nothing's really happening. Actually, it's my meditation is becoming worse. Okay. I know for myself now that meditating on sensuality is not good. Put it to the side. Okay. Let me meditate on aversion. Okay. He sits there and he meditates on aversion. And he's like, oh, this is not good either, right? This is not working. I don't feel more peaceful. I don't feel better. This is not for my benefit or the benefit of others. Let me put that aside too. He goes, okay, now let me meditate on cruelty. He sits there meditating on cruelty. Guess what? It doesn't work out for him, you know? And he goes, okay, these three things, sensuality, like aversion or anger, and cruelty, or we can say violence, these things are not beneficial. I know for myself, I was meditating on these things. I'll put them to the side. Let me cultivate the opposite of these things. The opposite of kamma, which is nekkhamma, usually translated as renunciation, but it just means like non-sensual thoughts, right? Putting sensuality to the side. So he meditates on renunciation, on non-sensual thoughts, and he's like, oh, this is very nice, not clinging and grasping, not desiring, not being pulled by these things. Oh, this is beneficial for me. I feel a lot calmer. I feel a lot better. I think this is wholesome. I'll put this on the good side. Then he meditates on non-aversion, non-anger, which is metta, loving kindness. And also he sits there and he's like, oh, wow, this is very good. I feel more calm. This is for the benefit of others and for my own benefit. This also goes with the good stuff. Then he meditates on compassion or kindness, we can say, the opposite of hurting people. And he also sees, wow, this is good for me, good for others. And my mind's becoming very calm. Okay, these are the good types of thoughts. These are the ones I need to generate. So I love this about the Buddha, that he was like an experimenter, right? He didn't take anything for granted. He wanted to know for himself what is good, what is bad, what kind of thoughts are wholesome and what kind of thoughts are unwholesome. Which ones are beneficial, not only for himself, but for others and for all, for everyone. This is one type of mental training that he did. This is the mental training called bhavana, actually. This is what bhavana means. So bhavana means cultivating, right? I said we're working with the soil of the mind. We're working with the field of the mind. We're trying to prepare it for wholesomeness to be able to sprout and arise and flower and bloom and give fruits. So before we get into like the formal sitting down meditation, we need to change the way we think. Vitakka, sankappa. Sankappa and vitakka are two different ways talking about thoughts. Vitakka sometimes has the sense of a more kind of like a concept, and sankappa has more the sense of a kind of like a motivation, something like that, some sort of thought that has a motivation or an intention even, sankappa. So this is what samavayama is at its core. Samavayama, right effort, the four wholesome strivings, chattari samapadana, is about eliminating, removing the unwholesome and cultivating, developing the wholesome states of mind, right? So how do we do this? Well, first, let's pretend we have a field, okay? We got a nice plot of land, and we're going to start farming here. We need to set up a fence or some sort of boundary, right? Because like the rabbits and like all kinds of animals are going to want to get in there, and right, maybe even our neighbors, they want to steal our stuff, or people are going to start dumping trash there. So we need to set up a barrier. We need to protect this land. This first step is called samvara. Indriya samvara. Indriya means your senses. First step is we need to protect our mind, which is the field. So we need to put up these guardians, something that guards the eye, something that guards the nose, something that guards the mouth, something that guards the body, something that guards the ear. This is called samvara. The Buddha says one protects the mind from unwholesome states that haven't arisen in the mind, right? So we kind of like create the causes and conditions in our lives So we're not being influenced by unwholesomeness. We're not letting in these animals or these people or this trash or these things that can mess up the field of our mind. So what does that mean? We need to practice sense restraint, right? So we want to avoid watching, listening, tasting, touching, associating with, and going to places that are going to bring in more trash to our mind, that are going to contaminate our mind. So if you know certain activities, if you know certain TV shows or movies or music or people or environments are just going to bring so much affliction to your mind, sadness, greed, hatred, delusion, all these unwholesome states, jealousy, you need to do your best to avoid it and protect your mind. And when you can't, you need to become aware right away and not entertain it, right? You need to protect your mind, your field of mind from unwholesomeness coming in. That's the first one, called samvara. But we know this is virtually impossible to do it 100%, right? We all know it's impossible 100%. But we do our best, right? Even if you have a farmland, you do your best to protect the field, but something's going to sneak in there, right? Eventually. Some kids are going to jump over and steal your fruits, right? Something's going to happen. Okay, so what do we do when something happens, right? What do we do when something happens? Well, the next step, the second training of the four is called pahana. Pahana means to eliminate, to remove, to take out, to abandon, to discard, to throw away. That is pahana. The Buddha says one makes an effort to eliminate unwholesome states of mind when they have arisen, right? This is very difficult for us because we feel very justified in our anger. We feel very justified in our jealousy. We feel very justified in our sensual fantasies, right? Well, I'm not really doing it. No one really knows, right? But in Buddhism, mental thoughts is an action too. There's 3 types of karma: physical, verbal, and mental. So even just thinking it produces unwholesome results in the future, bad results, right? It is still contaminating the field. So we need to be very careful when any sensuality, any anger, cruelty, greed, sadness arises in the mind. We notice, oh, this is unwholesome. This is not beneficial for me, for others, for all. I need to make an effort to remove this, to get rid of this. So we don't keep fueling these thoughts once they have arisen. First, we try to protect the mind. Then, if we can't protect everything, we at least try not to fuel them and try to get rid of them. Right? How do we get rid of them? The third step in these 4 trainings is called bhavana, which I already talked about. Right? So the Buddha says that we replace an unwholesome state with a wholesome state, or we can even say skillful state, because the Buddha gives us 5 skillful states later in another sutta called the Vitakka Santana Sutta, which is Majjhima Nikaya 19 or 20, one of those 2. Vitakka Santana. Vitakka means thoughts. Santana means to calm. Santanno means calming. So how to calm your thoughts, right? That is bhavana. So the Buddha says that we replace an unwholesome state with a wholesome state. So when we feel anger, we replace it with loving kindness. When we feel cruelty, we replace it with compassion. When we feel sensuality, we replace it with the practice of asubha, the literally non-beautiful, non-pretty, like meditating on the body, right? Reflecting on the different parts of the body, doing a body scan. This body has head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, sinews, skin, right? Pus, blood, urine, feces, etc. All these beautiful things, right? But that we like to not pay attention to. So we become aware of those things and we see that other people's bodies are just like ours, right? And this helps us overcome our sensuality. I remember a couple of times before I was a monk, waking up early in the morning or in the middle of the night. And then I'm pretty sure this happened to everyone. You see your partner drooling on their pillow and you're like, oh, this is not so attractive, right? Like, I had this whole idea of how beautiful this person is. I mean, they're a good person, but now it's kind of obvious that, the facade has been knocked down. They're just like me. They're not perfect. It's not so beautiful to see them drooling on themselves in the middle of the night, right? So this kind of attitude to see the entire person for who they are and see oneself, right? If sensuality can be directed towards oneself and vanity, right? Oh, I'm so beautiful. You get all narcissistic and vain and things like that. You reflect, oh, no, like this body also, I probably drool and stuff like that. And Maybe sometimes I got some mucus coming out here and some earwax, and my skin gets oily. And if I went to shower for a day, I'd smell just as bad as everyone else, right? And my poop stinks too. I don't have special poop that doesn't smell and things like that. So we replace an unwholesome thought, whatever. I'm just trying to give some examples of some unwholesome thoughts and how we can counter them with something that is skillful, right? Some of us might not think that thinking about poop, urine, poop, saliva, and snot is wholesome, but it is skillful. It can be skillful, right? So it is skillful thought. So in this discourse called the Calming of Thoughts, Vitaka Santana Sutta, the Buddha says, okay, first step, we practice bhavana by replacing unwholesome thoughts with wholesome ones. But that also doesn't work all the time, right? You might be there like metta, 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 and you're just like burning up inside, right? Like, I can't get the metta. It's not available to me. And that's true. Sometimes these wholesome states of mind are not easily available, especially if we haven't spent a long time cultivating them in the past. We don't have anything to draw from, right? It's very difficult. So the second step, and here's where karma really flourishes in the Buddhist view, he says, consider the consequences. What are the consequences of entertaining this thought? What would be the consequences of actually doing what you're thinking about? What would happen, right? Right now, later, and in future lives. You're like, oh, wow, well, this person that I was fantasizing about, maybe if their partner or my partner found out that I was fantasizing about them, I'd be in big trouble. So like, I shouldn't entertain those sensual thoughts, right? Like, that's not a good thing, right? Or what about if I were to act out on these fantasies of hurting my boss or something bad happening to my boss? Oh wow, like yeah, I can get fired. I can go to jail. People would think I was a bad person if they knew how I was thinking about my boss. All these bad things that I want to happen to my boss, right? You consider the consequences, and also in future lives, right? What would happen? What happens to a person's mind who is inclined to go this way? Well, their mind will find a rebirth or an existence that mirrors that. You would be born in a greedy state, in an angry state, in a jealous state, in a fearful state for your next birth, wherever it may be. And that'll kind of give you the heebie-jeebies. The Buddha talks about like a very beautiful person. You know, imagine someone very beautiful. Ana de Armas, right? Beautiful actress, right? And imagine if you were to put a dead corpse on her shoulders, what would be her reaction? She'd freak out, right? Like she'd throw that corpse off of her. She wouldn't want it on her. So the Buddha says, when we consider the bad consequences of these thoughts, we get that feeling of like, get it off me, right? No, I don't want those consequences. I don't want to feel that. That's the second step that we can do. So then the Buddha gives us three more. I invite you to read that sutta, Vitaka Santana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, either number 19 or 20. The Buddha gives us more steps. But this is the essence of bhavana, right? Of cultivating the mind. And this is not something, bhavana is not relegated only to on the cushion time. It's not limited to on the cushion time. Bhavana, to work the fields, right? You tend to the field all the time. If you are a farmer and you're at home and you see something bad happening to your field, you're not going to be like, well, it's not 9 to 5. I'm not going to deal with it. No, like you're going to go out there and you're going to take care of your field. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the night. You're going to go out there and you're going to take care of that field. So in a similar way, this mind is a field, right? A field for the potential of awakening. So we need to be on it all the time. From the moment that we wake up to when we go to sleep, we're always guarding the mind, right? We're guarding our field. We're always removing the weeds and keeping out the intruders that are coming in. And we're always cultivating good things, right? We might put some extra soil. We might put some minerals, some vitamins, whatever we need to do, some water for the field to be able to flourish, make sure it gets plenty of sunlight, right? That it's not covered, or there's no obstacles for the things that we're trying to plant in the field. This is bhavana. Bhavana meditation, this changing the way we think, changing our motivations, is an active process that we do all day. It's ongoing. Meditation is ongoing. If any of you have ever done work practice, samu, that's what samu is. Samu is bhavana. You know, you're cleaning, you're doing all these things, but you're supposed to be working on your mind too, right? That's samu. That's the core of samu work practice. It's trying to get you to notice like, hey, meditation is just not on the cushion. Meditation is in everything that we do. We're always working the field of the mind. And the last one, the last step of these 4 right strivings is called anurakana. Anurakana just means to continue or to maintain, right? So the Buddha says, one continues to develop or cultivate wholesome states in the mind that have arisen, right? So in the previous one, we were cultivating wholesome states in the mind when they were not there. Now we're continuing to cultivate or nourish those states that are already there, right? So this practice is ongoing. It's just like I was saying earlier, from the moment that you wake up to when you go to sleep, it's always happening. We continue this practice. And not only this practice, but all the other two, right? Like I said, protecting the field, eliminating the weeds, all the things that are contaminating it, and doing the good stuff for the field, whatever it needs. So in the last one, the Buddha's really emphasizing what I was just telling you right now. This is all the time. Meditation is ongoing. These are the 4 right efforts, the 4 wholesome strivings that we need to do to be able to access that clarity, that attention, that awareness, that consciousness that's going to help us strive when we do formal, like shikantaza, zazen, or vipassana, right? Because then with the absence of all these unwholesome states of mind, it's so easy for the mind to become calm and clear and to focus and really get in touch with the breath and do the body scan. But if all day we're entertaining all this garbage, I mean, that's all going to come with you. It's going to be so hard to meditate. It's going to be so hard. So that's why we need to, do a good job in cultivating these wholesome thoughts, wholesome motivations, these wholesome states of mind off the cushion. So when we get on the cushion, it's a lot easier to be able to develop mindfulness and concentration, sati and samadhi. And I think this is kind of one of the places that I don't see as much emphasis on in meditation. Everyone wants to jump to the end, right? Everyone wants vipassana. Everyone wants jhana. No one wants to work the field. Everyone wants the fruits. No one wants to do the hoeing. That's not the way it works. There's no shortcuts here. If you want the fruits, you have to do the labor, right? The fruits of your labor. You need to do the labor. You just can't get the fruits, right? This is, I feel like, a big thing that's missing in our practice. There's this misconception, I think, because, in the West, we went through this whole like intellectual development, right? And we realized that although we were able to manipulate our environment and create some beautiful things to make life easier for ourselves, we didn't become any less miserable. And some of us, the more educated and the more we started thinking, the more problems we got, right? It's like the notorious B.I.G., the rapper, said, more money, more problems, right? So it's like the smarter we got, the more problems we got. It's like, oh, wow, this didn't really help us out. So then I feel like a lot of us in our culture, especially those who came to meditation, we kind of became disenchanted with thinking. We're like, no, I'm coming here not to think. Like, I don't want to think. I want to get rid of thinking, right? That's the problem. So we neglect this practice. We just want to be kind of like sedated, unconscious, lobotomized meditators where we don't have any thoughts. But no, it's about thinking properly, right? Thinking in itself is not bad. If you're thinking always loving kindness, compassion, joy, thinking is not going to be a problem. You're going to be so happy. That's beautiful fuel for the practice. You're going to be so motivated. That is a way better field, right, to practice in than this kind of like cold, closed, lobotomized, not thinking state, this very neutral state. You don't want neutral soil. No, you want rich soil, really rich soil, really good soil. So instead of trying to get rid of thinking, we need to learn how to think properly and what kind of thoughts we should have. So let's not try to get rid of our intellect. We need it. That's what makes us humans, right? The Buddha talks about the preciousness of human life. And what is the first step in the Noble Eightfold Path? Samadhi, right view. What is right view? It's about the way you think about the world, how you see the world, right? It's not only view the way you see it literally, but the programming that you're running on, right? The thoughts you have about the world. Oh, this world has suffering. It has a cause. There's freedom from suffering and the path that leads from freedom from suffering. That's something that you have to reason out for yourself. So we need thinking, but we need to know what to think about, how to properly think.